Good morning, everybody. My name is John Kress with Ignite Payments, a First Data company, and today to talk about EMV. And EMV is a very sore subject right now for everybody because it's very confusing, and we're going to make it very simple for everybody today, so merchants know what to do, know what their responsibilities are, and how to become EMV compliant. And if anybody has any questions during the webinar, feel free to ask, because I'm sure it's questions that everybody would like answers to too. And no question is a bad question in the seminar. So we're going to get started. The first question everybody asks is EMV, and what does it stand for? EMV came out about 10 years ago in Europe. And what happened over there is Europay, MasterCard, and Visa got together to develop a non-fraud card, which was available so people can't copy the magnetic strips. Because in Europe, fraud was really a wide thing over there, and a lot of cards were being copied and duplicated, and it was costing Visa, MasterCard, and Discover millions and millions and millions of dollars every year. So about 10 years ago, they came up with EMV, which stands for Europay, MasterCard, Visa, and they compiled an organization to actually come up with standards for different kind of cards for that are more secure and can be more secure on the actual networks. Does anybody have any questions on what the EMV stands for? I'm sure you guys are getting a lot of information about it, but it's pretty straightforward and pretty simple. Any questions? Okay, we're gonna move on to the next slide. This is really easy, guys. There's EMV cards that are out there right now. There's not a lot issued, but the banks are converting most of the cards over to EMV compatible cards. And really how it works is it's a chip-enabled card that gets put into a slot reader, either on your terminal or on your PIN pad. Or it can be waved just like Apple Pay above the PIN pad and can be read with a contactless reader. But you have to have the capability to actually read those cards, okay? And what happens is the data on the chip really ensures that that card is an authentic card. And what they did is they made those cards so you cannot copy them. And right now, there's two types of chip cards out there, okay? There's a chip in a PIN card or a chip in a signature card, just like the debit cards that are out there right now. Now, the United States is moving forward with the signature cards and not the PIN cards at this time. The PIN cards will be in effect sometime, hopefully next year, but as of right now, it's just the signature cards that are being enabled by the networks for these types of cards. Are there any questions about this? No questions? Okay, we're gonna make this quick and easy for you guys. Okay, how EMV prevents fraud? Okay, what happens is when you put that chip card in that reader in that slot, it authenticates that chip to be an accurate and true chip card. Okay, and they're very hard and difficult to duplicate, and that's why these cards are out there, okay? It's preventing the magnetic strips from being duplicated within the chip cards. And what happens is when you stick it in that slot, it goes to the bank, verifies that's a true chip card, and it was an issued chip card for that person, and it comes back as a true actual chip card. So there's actual programming in the terminals as well as on the processor side to verify those chip cards, that they're actual true chip cards and not stolen chip cards, okay? Alrighty? And the biggest question we're getting in our office is, how do you guys accept chip cards? It's really super easy for everybody to become compliant and be able to accept chip cards, okay? First, you have to have an EMV chip card reader. You can either acquire that through your processor or through some online sites like Amazon, anything like that, okay? Now, 90% of the terminals that are out there right now, if they're newer terminals, all what you have to do is get a peripheral or a pin pad that'll actually read the cards. It plugs right in the back of your terminal, and what you have to do is you have to make sure that that device is compatible with your current processor, whether it's First Data or Heartland or whoever that may be. You just got to make sure that they have the ability to program that on the back end so it accepts the chip cards. And that's real important because some processors do different things with different pin pads and stuff. So what happens is you purchase the equipment or you have the equipment already, okay, you make sure it's compatible with your processor, alrighty, and then what happens is you actually have to call your processor and they have to change your profile on the back end and do some programming on the back end or open that file up and make sure that you're compatible with everything, and then what they do is they send a download to your terminal, okay? So what your responsibility is to pick up that download. And usually it only takes maybe 2 or 3 minutes to pick up that download because it's not a full download, it's just a parameter download, which is very quick and easy. After you pick up those enhancements, you test the chip card and make sure it's working. 99.9% of the time, it's just an automatic thing they send to you. Very simple. You're in the ballgame and you're accepting chip cards. Okay? Is there any questions about this? Because it's very easy to understand, and that's why we kind of take it down to the layman's terms, because we're getting a lot of questions in our office on how do we do this and why do we have to do this. Are there any questions about this? Okay, we're going to move on to the next slide. Okay. Everybody asks, why are we doing this EMV program? Why are the banks implementing it? Okay. Bank of America and all the big national banks are losing hundreds of millions of dollars on chargebacks and fraud because what's happening is online, as well as those magnetic strips and cards, people are duplicating these cards. They find out what the VIN number is to these banks, and each bank is assigned a specific number or prefixes on those cards. And what happens is the actual crooks, they take those numbers and they randomly process those numbers to get live cards. And when they hit that live card, they know it, and they do a big blitz and charge a ton of information, tons of stuff on there, and then all of a sudden the card's shut off. So these crooks are pretty slick. So what happened with the banks is they caught on what's going on with Europe with the EMV thing in our country, and they really took a close look at that and said, listen, this is something that we need to adapt over here because the fraud's getting large enough to take a big hit out of the bank, okay? Now for the merchants, it's going to increase the security at the POS level or at the credit card terminal level, okay? And what's going to happen is those cards are actually encrypted, and instead of sending a whole batch like a magnetic strip is, it sends each digit at one time. So that's why it takes a little bit longer to process EMV cards. It sends a digit, sends it back. Sends a digit encrypted, sends it back. Sends an encrypted digit, sends it back encrypted. And each way it's going, it's a different encryption on both ends of it. So it's going to increase security quite a lot. Okay. Now the deadline was in October 2015. There's not a lot of people EMV compliant as we speak, and we're working towards that. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on this slide? Okay, we'll make it easy for you guys. Okay. In 2015, the projected amount of cards that are going to be completed are 575 million. Okay, there's about 1.2 billion cards that are out there today, about 8 million POS terminals. Okay, so what the forecasters are projecting that about half of those cards are going to be chip-enabled by the end of the year. Realistically, do we see that going to happen? Probably not. It's probably going to be a lot lower than that, but they're projecting about 48% of it to be done. As of right now, about 20% of the merchants have completed EMV. All right. What First Data is projecting, about 35% of all U.S. retail locations are going to be EMV compatible by the end of the year. And as you can see, the mandate was already passed on October 2015, but there's not a lot of people that are actually capable of taking the EMV cards. And it's going to be a slow transition. It took Europe about 4 years to get 100% compliant with all these. And it's really, the main reason why they're doing it is they're taking the loophole out of the counterfeiting of cards, because the magnetic strips are super easy to counterfeit right now with the technology that's out there, and they want to take that out of the equation for everything. All right, here's a quick slide showing how the EMV migration, it really affected the entire system for processing in the United States. Because what happened is the banks had to have the capability to receive the EMV transactions from the acquirer. And the issuers had to change the way the cards are in production to actually have the cards, which costs a lot of money to reorganize and reproduce all these cards with the technologies that are out there. And then what happened is we had to change the terminals to read those cards and update the encryptions to read the cards. So you can see that there's a lot of stuff in the background that actually makes EMV work and work towards a more secure system in the country. All right. Now, magnetic strip transactions are really a static transaction. It's a bulk of information on the back of the card that gets tracked back and forth in one large batch. So what happens is it makes the system really acceptable to stuff to be grabbed in the middle there, and that's why all these encryptions came out and tokenizations and all this stuff. So to make it harder for crooks or criminals to grab the information. And now what is happening is they're grabbing the information, but they're really not getting any usable data. So that's why they're targeting folks internally, like the different breaches that happened throughout the country within the last couple of years. They're really targeting internally to grab the cards because of the transactions. Now the EMV cards are quite different. The EMV cards, the way they're transferred, it's 100% encryption from the point of the terminal. Okay, so when they stick that card in there with that chip, it reads that chip as a valid chip, connects it to the consumer, and when it's going through the actual network, it's coming back with one digit at a time, back and forth and back and forth, and people are trying to grab that information, and they're grabbing stuff, but unusable data. It's unusable, and the chip makes it way more secure. All right. Now, everybody's question is the liability shift, and the liability shift is only if you cannot accept chip cards, EMV cards. Okay, and this is important to know. So, if somebody comes into your establishment and they have a chip card, and you read the chip card as a magnetic strip card, and for some reason there's a chargeback situation, and they initiate a chargeback, then what Visa, MasterCard, and the bank institutions are doing is they're pushing it back to the merchant. And it's completely unfair, and I agree with you guys. It's an unfair scenario, but it's only if they have an EMV card and you swipe it as a magnetic strip. Because all the EMV cards have magnetic strips on the back, so you can still run those cards as a regular transaction with a card reader. It's only if there's a chargeback. In a scenario where you're not getting chargebacks right now, the liability really shrinks for you. Like if it's a restaurant, people aren't just doing chargebacks at restaurants or different things like that. It's only if there's a chargeback and they initiate a chargeback. Is there any questions about that? Because I know that there's a lot of questions that we get in our office about the liability shift and what's going to happen and everything with the whole scenario that happened at the end of October. Any questions? No? All right. If anybody has any questions about the liability shift, please feel free to call me because it's pretty easy to understand, and it really only pertains to chargebacks if somebody is going to initiate a chargeback at your establishment, okay? Alrighty? And that's really the gist of the EMV. Really what you guys need to know is you need to know that you can still take EMV cards with a magnetic strip, so you're not going to be shut down. You can still slide those cards just like you slide a normal credit card, and they will work on the system. The second thing you need to know is it's really super easy to accept EMV cards. Most of your credit card terminals will have the ability to do it just by hooking up a pin pad to the back of your terminal. And you can get what's compatible with your terminal through your current credit card processor, okay? And that's really the gist of it. Liability shift is only for the chargeback, okay? Anybody have any questions about the presentation today? I know it was short and sweet, but we want to take it back to the layman's terms in a short presentation so people understand it. Any questions about it or anything? Or anybody have any concerns about EMV or any specific questions about terminals that you guys have that you think are EMV compatible or any of that stuff? Okay, if there's no questions at this time, we're going to conclude. I will send everybody a copy of this presentation within the next 24 hours with my contact information. And if anybody has any questions or I didn't answer anybody's questions, please feel free to contact me. And like I said, we make it very easy and very simple. And thanks for attending today. I do appreciate it.